So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Karel, who's going to introduce some of the exercises we want to do with you
Great.
today.
Thanks so much, Andrew. And so we are sort of pulling in together into this very short time that we have together a very, very short introduction to what all this is. And you might feel like you're drinking from a fire hose here, but you just got really sort of the overview of this stuff. We also have the focus on how it's applied. Andrew talked about, we want to take a good amount of time to give you the practice of what it actually feels like, because you can describe this all you want, and it's not any comparison to the actual experience of when you're doing it. So speaking of which, a core, talking about technology, the core technology that we use for this IBM design thinking work is a toolkit that you're either sitting on or you did actually pick it up and it's now in your hands. So it's a Sharpie pen or a pen basically, and a Post-it notepad. You typically have this stance of your writing hand has to have your pen, and the other hand holds on to the Post-it note. And I want to get you to work right now. So grab your toolkit, and I'd like you to take 2 minutes and design a bridge. You're going to design a bridge that takes people from one side of a river to another. Go to it. I like to move things along. Okay, you probably get the idea of the one you just drew. What I'd like you to do now is take that top sheet that you just drew, give it a really nice, comfortable crunch, rip it off, crunch it off, put it beside you, put it on your lap. And what I'd like you to do now is take 2 minutes to design a better way for people to enjoy getting from one side to the other. Think about it first. You're going to design a better way for people to enjoy getting from one side to the other. Go for it. Again, as you're finishing up that drawing, I'd like to ask one brave soul that can start us off by describing the second of your ideas to the rest of the group. And you can show your drawing or you don't have to, but just tell us your idea. Okay, so, yes?
I'm kind of a nature lover, so my idea was if you had something that was like a giant conveyor belt that you could drive up to, and then the car gets on the conveyor belt, and then you walk across while your car gets transported for you, and you can like enjoy sights, and maybe there's like fruit concessions or whatever.
All right.
And then when you get over to the other side, the car is there, and you get back in again.
I love it. I love it. Well, thanks so much for being the first, and pretty cool idea. All right. Who else has an idea that might not be exactly the same?
I just, a little bit simpler, I set up 2 poles and established a zip line.
A zip line. I love it. A zip line, a conveyor belt. How about anybody? Yep.
So I'm going to be really obnoxious, the 3 of us here. I wrote down 3 questions, man, because I don't know who's on that bridge, where they're going, or what's happening.
Hey, that's very, very good. We're going to get there. One other thought. Yes.
Similar,
Yep.
I didn't assume that a car had to get to the other side, so I made one that was an underground tunnel so that folks could walk through and see the fishies in the water. And then the other one is a slide where you can climb up and then you can kind of,
I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, way, way in the back, the last one.
Oh.
My idea, similar to the one you just spoke, was to take the bridge down and go through the water like a tunnel.
Yep.
Because I like to see what's in the water.
I love it. You guys are good. This is really, really, really good. Okay, so what was different about the way that I asked you the question the first time, and I didn't take up the drawings of your bridges, right? What was different when I asked you the first question and the second question?
you told me to go in on that.
I told you the solution. How many times do we start a project and say, we need to build an app? We start with the solution as opposed to like, what are we actually trying to create? And for whom? And what experience do they want to have, right? Now think about it, and again, I didn't take up the bridge examples because they were generally very similar, right? But when you looked at the examples of what you came up with when I said, hey, look, actually try to design something that is going to be enjoyable for the experience. You came up with really innovative things, right? So the big difference, if you start with trying to design for the experience, is you are way more creative than you will if you actually start with the solution in mind. All right. So let's move quickly then on to the why do we want to do that, and what do we need to do in order to actually understand that? And the questions that the one gentleman mentioned were directly relevant, in that you want to have empathy for the people that you're trying to create this solution for, right? And what is empathy? It's the act of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and even vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experiences of another person. As Andrew said, you want to put yourself in the shoes of the other person, right? You want to actually see things from their point of view. I'll give you a quick example. So Doug Dietz is a design principal at GE Healthcare. He designs products like this. Right? These imaging machines, MRI machines. And he's gotten international recognition for his industrial design of these machines. But he was asked to come and visit a children's hospital and see how it was used, right? So he went there and he was absolutely shocked. You know, some 86% of kids had to be sedated to go through this. It was one heck of a scary process, and most adults that I talked to also say it's pretty scary for adults too, right? And so what he did was he went back to the D school, the design school at Stanford, and learned essentially and worked with them on the foundational design thinking that is part of the IBM design thinking version as well. We added some things to it. And that's all about empathy. Really, who are you designing this for? Let's figure out the kids that he's trying to design this experience for. So he went to places like this. Said, what do kids like? You know, what makes them feel comfortable in the environment that they're in? So he went back and redesigned his machine, and in this case, it was actually a fairly inexpensive change, but he basically just put these decals on it, right? And so like the top left one, this pirate theme, it wasn't just the product. You know, to Andrew's point, it's the entire experience, right? So the staff, the technicians that would greet the kid, you know, would be also dressed in that kind of gear, right? And they would tell the story that if you lie down on this, and if you're really, really still and make your way all the way through without moving, it's going to get really noisy in there. If you can do that, there's actually a treasure chest on the other side, and then you can choose whatever you want from the treasure chest. Right? Now, some 3% of kids needed to be sedated, and lots of them wanted to go through it again. Right? So that's when you know you've been successful. Okay, so we're going to get to work. So what we want to do is give you the experience of going through this. Okay, and what we wanted to do and what we've come up with is this as a target, as something that we want to address. We need to delight the citizens that you serve in the various parts of the organizations that you're in. You want to delight the citizens you serve and improve your organization's overall performance in serving the needs of the constituents that you serve. So what we want you to do is go through and we'll give you instructions at each stage of this. But what we wanted you to do was to organize by either the organization that you're in or what you're interested in. So you're probably all citizens of this state, right? And so you're all in certain cases users and people that actually use these various services and like as well. So what we've done is we've organized basically groups around the room for motor vehicles, employment, healthcare, social services, education, corrections, and natural resources are the categories that we've put up. So each part of the room has a heading above some strange-looking sheets on the wall that we'll tell you more about in a minute. But we would like to organize this by having you go to those relevant parts of the room based on your interest, right? So if you're in a group that isn't closely aligned with any of these, you can still choose one that just interests you, okay? So, and we hope that we get somewhat, equal distribution across them. When we get there, and before you move, I want to just give you the first instructions. The first instructions are that I'd like you to just say hello to each other, but take all of like 3 seconds to do that, because we're really moving through this stuff quickly. And then I'd like you to choose one person in the group that is going to be kind of the person that you're going to empathize with, okay? So the person that you're going to ask to describe the experiences that they have with regard to whatever category it is that we're talking about, okay? So if it's motor vehicles, you know, it's what's their experience with dealing with that organization in general. We're going to be using what we call an empathy map that I mentioned earlier, which is basically these 4 quadrants. What does that person do with regard to the area that it is that we're talking about? What do they say about it to other people? What do they think about it? They might not even say to other people. But what do they also feel about it, right? What's their emotional reactions to, you know, they love it, they hate it, you know, they're concerned about it, makes them nervous, whatever. And I'd like you to sort of capture in the center. You can draw the person if you like. You can change their name to protect the innocent if you'd like. And then as that person talks, and that person should describe what they do, what they feel, okay, in order. I want everybody else to take your toolkit in hand and now start to make notes. You know, more than one word, but less than a dissertation, right? So just a few words. As soon as you capture the idea, I'd like you to put it in the appropriate quadrant up on the empathy map and just keep working through it that way, okay? So your tasks then, and I'll tell you what the next steps are when we get there, but that's sort of the first task that I'd like you to do. And the whole point of this is not to use a made-up persona. This is when you do this for real, you have to actually talk to the people that you're going to be designing this stuff for. So in this case, we're trying to just simulate that by having somebody talk about their experience here in the room with regard to that domain area. Any questions? Okay, so have a look around the room before you move where you want to go. Okay, so social services here, healthcare there, corrections in the back over there, education over there, employment over here, motor vehicles over here, and if your favorite one isn't there, we're sorry, but we want to organize by these ones for the purposes of today. Okay, move into your groups.
They can assume the role as a citizen, right?
Yeah. Yeah, let me clarify as well that when we design this stuff, you can either design it for the end user, which can be the citizen. You can also design it for the people that work in a function, so an internal employee sort of thing. For today's purposes, we're going to be focusing on you as a citizen, okay?
We don't have to do it.
With regards to that,
All the stuff they were talking about in there, it's my job to get all undersecretary, the road to talk about strategy and IT, and so on IT solutions, but business.
My dad died in
It's been a
2014.
huge
I was executive for his estate.
That's me.
And he had a car, and I had to transfer, I had to sell a couple of cars. I managed to set up a mic. And ended up making it my own. I thought it was a fire alarm. But in the process, no, I think somebody navigated the website, all the laws and policies to understand what forms I needed to fill out. I needed to figure out for each situation, so I had to sell a collector car, which was a different type of registration, a different kind of form. One of them I transferred to a family member who didn't pay me anything, so I had to figure out that. And anytime you're dealing with a death in the state, you have to figure out what the death certificate, the will, which part of the will, or the living trust, so one way to try to add a date with registration for that car. Meantime, time is going on, and I'm not really paying attention, so now I'm talking to my day and putting mail notice, because eventually that mail got forwarded to my mom, a different address, to my address, and then I had to pay a late fee of $200 on top of the registration. So now my dad's dead, I have a car, the registration's late, and now I have to send it back. And now my biggest question is, do I have to go into the DA, pay that late fee, pay the registration, insult to injury to my own So I put it on my outlet to go in and pay or to try to figure out, because I have no confidence that it's actually what's
as soon as you've written some. Okay, I'd like to just get your attention. You're all, I think, engaged in this activity. As is quite typically the experience, people really get into this because this is really understanding deeply who it is you're designing for. We're gonna skip a couple of steps. We want to give you the next experience of now you've captured this person. Okay, what we'd like to do now is to take that person, and you've looked at their generic sort of experiences in the domain that they're dealing with. We'd like you to do now is look at them over time for a particular experience. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is think of, and this is the person who you're creating the persona of, think about, and I'll ask you, the people that are actually doing the talking, to think about an experience that you've had dealing with this part of the organization, and an event, and something that happens before it, and something that comes after it. Normally we do what is called an as-is scenario. That is like a whole bunch of different steps, but for today's purposes, we just want to do 3 steps. So if, for example, it's for motor vehicles, it might be, getting a license, or what did you do before you got it? What did you do during the experience of when you got it? What did you do afterwards? Just to simplify the experience. So try to choose something that may have a little bit of challenge that you experienced in it, because we're going to be looking at how to solve that and make it better. So think of a scenario that might actually be perhaps have some negative experience in it as well. Okay, so think about before, during, and then after some experience that you had in the areas that you've talked about here, and again, have the person in your group that is describing this describe now their experiences in those 3 steps, if you will, and then what did they do? What did they think, and what did they feel with regard to each of those steps? Write them on your post-it notes. Put them on the sheet. Clear? Let's go for it.
To retain the vehicle and so there was a period of time between when it, and I needed to understand what paperwork I needed to process and so I should say that I beneficiary in these days that my dad has executive session. I want to make sure
Okay, you have about 3 more minutes on this particular sheet. Okay, so move along.
I'm the editor and actually used to write
Okay, if I could just have your attention for a moment. I know that you're not complete doing that as a scenario map, but I just want to give you the feel for this, right? So we're not going to be complete today doing it. What I'd like you to do next is to get, one part of your toolkit, meaning your pen, and what I'd like you to do is look at everything that you see on your sheet, and you get to vote for 3 things by putting X's on them. Each person gets to vote 3 times, and be honest, 3. For the areas that you think on the sheet where you could improve significantly what is there today. Which 3 things do you think that if we were going to do a piece of work over the next while to improve whatever it is that you're talking about, which 3 things do you think would be most opportune, most profitable to actually focus on? Either fixing a problem or addressing an opportunity that you see there. All right, so look at what's on your sheet, put X's on if there's a cluster that's relevant, if there's an individual post that's relevant, cool. So just mark them out quickly, okay? No, just the as-is scenario. Just the sheet that you have in the middle, okay? Okay, have you all voted? Has everybody voted? Okay, if I could have your attention again, please. So you've all voted. You've also now all identified what the major pain points are, the major areas that you're going to improve upon. Make sure, if you haven't done that in your group, that you're all clear on what sort of the major cluster is that you have as an area that you want to improve upon. What I'd like you to do next in this whirlwind tour of IBM design thinking is to now come up with ideas that will solve or significantly improve that particular problem or area of opportunity. Okay, now this is what I like to call quiet time. I always tried to come up with a term that everybody would abide by and would not talk, because you'd want to do this by yourself. And so the one that I've come up with is quiet time, because we've either been kids or your parents, and everybody knows what quiet time is. This is the time to individually, and it's really important to do this individually, come up with your own ideas, like 2 to 3 ideas, write it on separate Post-it notes, do a little drawing if you can, and even think of at least one idea that seems absurd, that is like, you know, gravity isn't relevant. You know, just think of 2 to 3 ideas that fixes the problem. One idea, just go wild. Come up with your ideas of how to solve it. Write those down, and as soon as you've written them, put them up on the ideas sheet, and as soon as everybody in your group is finished writing their ideas, you're going to share your ideas with one another. Okay? Go for it. Okay, wherever your team has gotten to, let's leave the ideas that you've captured thus far on the sheet, and now just very, very quickly tell each other the ideas. Just go through the team so you all have a really quick idea of what you've got up there. 2 seconds a person.
Finally, when I had time to deal with the paperwork part. So my ideas were like hours, so like 24-hour service. I think someone else said that. But the chat, you know, I was willing to pay extra. So paying for an appointment sooner, you know, sometimes it's like 2 to 3 weeks out. Paying for an appointment after hours to get them and then money that I could pay either as a fee or some of the like a deposit so I show up. So paying for service, paying extra. I didn't do that as long as I got it done. Was it a problem? But during regular business hours, or during the regular my business hours, that I already took time off to deal with Playback stuff. So I'd already extinguished so much of my time and dealing with these higher pressing issues with the internet. And this again fell to the bottom of my list, so I needed something that was more convenient. So again, paying extra, I didn't mind.
Same. We all agree 24-hour chat. I had free weekend form completing workshop. They can provide videos, the guys on the forums, and maybe you could pay an extra charge to have a DMV rep do that for you. Pay for that service.
Like a concierge.
Something generic.
And then I had maybe
Okay, if I could have your attention again, please, as you finish your sentence. So I know that you really want to carry on about this because you got your ideas flowing. But for the sake of going through and just experiencing this, right, I think we probably accomplished the objective that we did for that one. But I just wanted to take just a couple of minutes to Playback. When I talked about playbacks earlier, the part of this thing where we talk about the experience that we're going through and the like, I wanted to just maybe ask one or two teams to play back, what they found, sort of what sort of insights they got, some ideas that were some of the best that they came up with after describing a little bit about what the context was of the problem that you're trying to solve. Okay, so the team over here working on employment have also volunteered or have been voluntold, I don't know, to play back. And so why don't Crystal, why don't you, Crystal?
Oh, I get to get mic'd up and everything?
Well, you better just hold it. 'Cause
Sweet.
the little holder fell off.
Okay.
Okay, go.
Hello, how are you? So I'm Crystal. I work at the California Department of Technology in project delivery. And so I think it's apt that I'm here at this conference today. I'm on the employment group today, and one of the things that we did was do a profile of me. I thought that was super fun. So we started with, what are some core things about me? I'm a millennial, I'm highly educated, I'm looking for a clear process to be able to get jobs and transition in my executive career. And then I have a background in technology as well as finance and so forth. So we talked a little about some of the things that I say. And some of the things I say as I'm thinking about employment opportunities is, wow, what do I bring to the table? What are my skills and abilities? What makes me different? How can I solve the pain points of departments that need me? Who can I talk to about opportunities that are available? And what are the needs of employers? What are they looking for today? What are those pain points? What are some of the things that I do? Let's say I'm looking for a job. Don't tell my boss that, but let's just say I'm looking for a job, that I'm not unemployed, but still looking, that I go online. That's the big way that I'm going to go look for opportunities, and so that plays into solutioning. And the key pain point for me in what I do is that I'm endeavoring to match my skills to those opportunities that are out there. What do I feel? Well, when I'm going through this process, I really want to have an approachable, comfortable experience. I'm a little bit confused because it seems like there's a lot of opportunities out there, but are they really the right ones for me? And I'm optimistic about my chances of finding something great. And then the last bucket here is, what do I think? Well, I think about my education. I think, gosh, can't this be easier and faster and smarter? I think, wow, where are the org charts about these organizations? And I'm hearing about how can I know how my role, if I were to accept and look for this opportunity, how would I fit into that broad organization? Okay, and then I don't remember what this one is called, but this one? As-is scenario. The as-is scenario. So we talked about as kind of the as-is the process of applying for a job. And what happens before that is I'm searching, and after that, I get an interview, right? So during the steps during search are that I am actively reading job ops, and I'm trying to research the organization. So we summarize that into trying to really match myself to available jobs. And then another one that I'll highlight under applying is that this sort of vector of researching the company and really trying to understand what are they looking for, what are their pain points. And so from there, under ideas, there were a couple that came to the fore. One was, in order to match a person more effectively, leverage things like Match.com does, where you have reverse searching, right? You input information about who you are and what you do, and you can find them, and they can also find you. Wouldn't that be great? And that the system would base what I can do, what I'm looking for, off of keywords in a resume, for example. That we could leverage videos of the day in the life of not only the job that the organization is looking for, but those horizontally aligned entities within the organization that if you're in that job, you're going to be working with effectively. What do they do? What's the day in the life there? And that org charts would help with that. We also said that being able to have a video of the actual person who's doing the hiring, the selecting official, what are they looking for? What's their personality? What kind of personality do they work best with? That kind of information would be helpful, in addition to some more traditional things like
easy links to organizational mission, vision, and strategic objectives would be helpful as well.
Awesome.
That's it.
Awesome job, and an awesome group by the team too. Yes, in very, very short time going through all of that. What other team, this team over here, want to just describe a little about yours? We're a little short on time, so try to be net.
So our subject matter area is healthcare, and we focused on Fred. He's a consumer, a beneficiary of services. What Fred does simply is he's a handyman, and he goes back and forth between private and public coverage a lot. He's got unsteady income. Sometimes he's working, sometimes he's not. He's got a sick kid, so he really relies heavily on being able to go to the doctor's office. Well, one of Fred's big problems, the way he thinks and he feels, is he's uncertain about what type of coverage he has. So his primary concern is understanding what his coverage is. So working through the process to get to our ideas, we kind of focused on what we might be able to do in government to be able to simplify the information that's available. Whether it's to provide top 10 scenarios like a frequently asked questions to make sure there's some situational awareness of the coverage needs. And then also some really good ideas regarding outreach. How might we make that information more readily available? There's a Medi-Cal application. How do we promote that on some of the information sites that we already have? How do we go out and maybe do a bus tour or do some type of like text messaging, to recipients so they better understand what their level of coverage is. So it was a very good discussion and led to a lot of good ideas, some of which, like the text message idea, something I personally didn't think of, but when it was said, it rings true. And I think that's one of the neat things about this process is you get a lot of ideas that you wouldn't necessarily think of personally. So, yeah.
Very good. So thanks so much for that. You can all sit down again now. I know you've been standing this whole time. Other than the panelists can stand up and actually come to the table at the front. And just finish that exercise. And thanks for letting me bully you through that so quickly. But I just wanted to get you the feel for what this is like. And the last comment about you got a lot of good ideas if you empower people in your group, right? And you've got a diverse enough set of people in your group. And these ideas are only as good as, think of that loop. Going back to the people that you're actually serving and checking that very quickly with, for example, a low fidelity prototype, or if you're talking about a process enhancement, to go back to just even think it through, walk that feedback through to people that would be the ones that would be using it. So this is a little tiny, taste of what this stuff is all about. Workshopping is only part of what this whole design thinking and agile delivery is all about. But I hope you've gotten some sort of visceral, experiential sense of what it's like to kind of use these methods. And you can see how doing this and then actually doing the principles of agile delivery together really expedite being able to get really good stuff out to the right people that need it.